Hey, everybody. Welcome to another Sunday morning conversation. Today, my guest is Johnny Pace, a sports photographer. He's still relatively new to the industry. He's only been there for about a year and a half. And actually, it's more like 2 years now. I wanted to talk to as many sports photographers as I can just to see how their perspective is on it is to shoot races and stuff. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. So how's it going, man? When's your flight leave?
What was that?
When's your flight leave?
Well, I'm flying to Eugene for the pre-classic on Wednesday, and then from there I'll fly on Sunday to Atlanta. So
yeah, I saw you you shoot more than just triathlons.
yeah, it's a little bit of everything. It was kind of, I started with track really, like, and then Ari Clow kind of started getting in triathlon and introduced me to it. So yeah, I'm still dabbling in a bit of both.
He's the guy with the mustache, right? Or the Fu Manchu. What's he got going on?
Fu Manchu, that's right.
I actually haven't seen him racing anything yet. Has he?
He's done 3 races. He's done Maine, Oceanside, and then this past weekend I went and saw him race in LA at the PTO. But he's only a year in. He's still getting started with it.
So he doesn't have his pro card yet, does he?
He does. He got it in 3 months of starting the sport. He never swum. He never swum before.
That's incredible.
And yeah, in 3 months was able to qualify to get the pro card. So he's been racing as a pro, that's like typical of him. Like he wants to go all in. And so he, even like Lionel Sanders took 3 years to get his pro card. And Ari said, give it to me as soon as possible. So it's kind of like a learning curve because he's now swimming against professionals, and he's really just, getting into that. So I hope it's going to be like an accelerator for him, but
his run makes up for it, huh?
Yeah. Well, sometimes I think he wants to be winning. So he's still got a while to go before.
Well, nobody goes into this stuff wanting to lose. I mean,
right. Yeah.
And you ran track at UVA, right?
That's right. Yeah. I did 4 years at Virginia. So I've done a few triathlons too, but yeah, track has kind of been my love for the last few years.
Now, did you do photography while you were at UVA, or did you do something else?
No, not at all. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. The photography thing's been like kind of a COVID hobby. There's like 2 factors at plays. I always appreciated the composition of a good photo, but I was always doing it on my iPhone and having that frustration that it never would come out the way I was seeing it. And as a high schooler or a college student, like I wasn't ready to drop several $1,000s on equipment at that point. So I was kind of limited to the iPhone, but every now and then I would rent a camera from UVA.
That's nice. You could use
did not do it really at all until like about 2 years ago when I finally bought my own equipment. And the other factor was that our coach at UVA would always take these awesome pictures, but of like the team, and it was so cool to have a shot of us, doing all our runs. Charlottesville is beautiful if you've never been, and Blue Ridge Mountains and rolling country roads, and he'd get these awesome pictures, but they were just from his iPhone. And I always wished that there was a real camera on it, because some of these things were just so beautiful. But I really felt like as a college athlete, I was there to be an athlete and really be all in at practice. And as much as I wanted to be on the other side of the camera, like taking the photos, like I'd never really entertained it because it felt like my main job was to be a college athlete. And so it's kind of been nice to transition now post college to be able to be on the track, be at the runs that people are doing, and be able to capture it as a photographer.
Yeah, I like doing photography too. I never want to be to like a professional photographer, and I'm better with like landscape and architecture than I am like sports shots. But yeah, like I have I forget what the Canon model it is. I have that, but it's older, and I got it off someone just to experiment with. My strengths lie with all the Adobe Creative Suite software.
Oh, nice.
Because I had to learn how to use that way back in the day to be an architect. You go through an architecture school. First thing I had to learn how to use was Photoshop. Then it was,
Right.
I had to learn, when I came to Georgia Tech, I had to learn Illustrator.
Right.
And then I learned Premiere Pro and After Effects. And then I had to pick up DaVinci Resolve. So,
Nice. Well, I'll tell you what, there's a steep learning curve with that. It's like, that's such a great skill. I feel like to be able to be comfortable with the Adobe suite gives you so much potential. It can be intimidating to a newcomer. And so it's powerful stuff though. You can do some really amazing stuff with it.
yeah, definitely. And my only downside is, back in school, we were pretty much fucking pirates of everything. We would, anything we could get off Pirate Bay, we did. So I'm only operating in CS5 because that's the last version they made before you had to get a subscription.
Yeah, right. No, I know what you're saying. I was in
12 years old.
Yeah. Well, keep squeezing the life out of it as long as your computer will run it.
Yeah. But what are your strengths with those softwares?
Well, I've really, like, these days I'm using Lightroom every day. I love the workflow of like being able to send it over to like a phone and edit on the phone. Like, that was one of the other big gripes that I had about sports photographers, is that if you could even access the photos at any point, it would be a week, 2 weeks later. And so that's kind of, I don't know, I do it really because I enjoyed doing it, is like getting the photos to the athletes or to myself as quickly as possible. And so Adobe has a very, like, their Lightroom app is really solid. Like, I think can fine tune things even better on the app than I can on my desktop. So sometimes I'll take the photos, Wi-Fi, transfer it over then and there, and edit them up and have it, up and ready to share. It has a nice like album sharing creation tool that allows you to like send links to people. And that's something that's really rewarding, is for whatever reason, like being able to share the photos with folks like within the hour, and also looking good, like looking properly, edited in Lightroom. But I did, honestly, back in middle school, I always dabbled in, like, whenever we had the opportunity to do like projects that were videos, like in history or whatever, I always opted for getting creative in Premiere. So it was like Premiere and Photoshop were the two that I started with. And I've definitely, that's like an area I want to get back into. Like I've done a lot of, I've done like the Athlete Special and Ari's YouTube channel. Those are both runners, and it's having, cool tricks in Premiere or Photoshop is nice, but it almost detracts. Like, it's not as necessary, but there's like I said, it's like there's an endless amount of stuff you could do with it. So I'd love to kind of continue building those skills. After Effects is another one. It's just a whole other world, which I guess is nice, that I feel like that's totally unexplored at this point in like the sports media that I've been working with. So a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I forgot to say, I've never had exposure to Lightroom yet because I couldn't pirate the software. But I also learned InDesign, and that's a great tool to make your portfolios with.
Yeah, I don't know that I've used that, but I think I have the subscription to it, so should definitely check it out. I would say if you do anything with photos, like Lightroom will take an average looking photo and just with a few, sometimes you could do it auto, make it look professional. So I think the app is even free. So definitely play with it if you have the chance.
All right. Yeah, because it's probably could just do all the same things I do in Photoshop, just easier and quicker.
Oh, yeah. So if you're editing photos in Photoshop, I would say Lightroom, if you're not, if you're not adding, like, I don't know what you would do with Photoshop, something crazy, but like, I think for general photo editing levels and whatnot, similar effects, but I think the workflow is a lot smoother and quicker in Lightroom, more intuitive. But you would probably, if you're comfortable with Photoshop, you would pick up Lightroom in a second.
Yeah. How did you pick up the actual doing, like, for Ari's YouTube videos? How did you pick up doing design in like After Effects? I mean, obviously you can shoot, but how have you learned how to do that? because the most way I had to teach myself for After Effects, because I didn't learn for school.
Yeah.
I had to learn that in Premiere Pro and DaVinci Resolve. I did it through YouTube tutorials.
Yeah. Oh, amen. Yeah, it's YouTube University. It's you can find just about anything. I feel like it was like, oh, it's been over the course of like 10 years, like going all the way back to those middle school projects where I was like, oh, I wonder if I could like make myself fly, or if I could keyframe this thing to do something crazy. And it's like on a case-by-case basis, you know, watching those YouTube tutorials or online guides, like you kind of start to piecemeal together. You start to understand the entire program kind of on a case-by-case basis. And that's definitely how I learned. It was trial and error, and it's crazy. I mean, it's pretty neat that you don't have to go to a college course or have a professional teach you. Like the internet really has opened up so much
yourself
learning.
a couple $1,000s.
Yeah. So yeah, same boat, just through the internet.
I found that with my brain injury, and it makes it harder to learn software and retain short-term information to get it in the long term, that I have to rely on my Photoshop and Illustrator skills and InDesign, because I learned that before the brain injury, and that never went away. I have like 12 years of experience on those things. And so when I make videos, sometimes if I can't figure it out, even with YouTube videos, I have to cheat in Photoshop and stuff, create it there, and then just assemble it, because I know I could see in my head how I want things to work, but I can't make it happen in the software. So I kind of do it all the grunt work in Photoshop, and then just assemble it with motions and all that stuff.
Well, that's cool. I mean, you got to use the tools that are available to you. And there's like the cool thing about Adobe is like there's no set way. It's like there's 100 different ways to arrive at a similar result. And there's people can recommend methods for how to go about something, but I think you can get the same effect with multiple approaches. And so that's great.
What's the coolest thing you learned how to do in After Effects? What kind of,
Let me think. I ran for class president at UVA like a couple years ago, and put together a really neat, a very After Effects heavy project. And that was a key example of like one of those things where I had these ideas, and then it was a question of how do I learn how to create these when I really didn't know After Effects very well. But yeah, I mean, I think the one that there's two that come to mind for that is like, I started with a shot of the UVA library, and then I wanted to pan down subterraneously to like a, super underground floor. And what was that process like of motion blurring down underground, and then making the shot open up on this underground floor. So that was really neat. I kind of animated. There's a statue at the school of like Icarus, a guy with wings, and I made him fly. And so that was like learning the keying of flight and motion blurring. And that's the sort of stuff I haven't done so much in the triathlon world. Of course, it's like pretty time intensive. It can be. It's so that just for the sake of time, and honestly, like what would be the application of that to a triathlon?
Yeah, there's not a lot of creativity to doing like triathlon YouTube content and stuff. Like, and I imagine for like, the photos, it's just making it look good, not like, inserting stuff like, and, manipulating it so much.
Yeah. Well, here, my thought though, is like, maybe that's an opportunity like that. I think that's kind of maybe a goal going forward is how could you get it more creative? Like, I think the goal is always to surprise people and always create something that's different than what people have seen. That's the big goal. Is there's a triathlon or sports videos can be a dime a dozen, but what are ways to kind of send a bit of a curveball, get creative with it? So maybe it's After Effects. We'll have to see.
I think a dime a dozen is definitely an understatement now, because there was like a 3-month window during the pandemic where it exploded. And like, I don't know. And it was uncoordinated too. Everybody decided to make a YouTube channel, and every pro's got one, and half the age groupers do now.
Yep. Yeah. And what are your thoughts on that? I'm not as closely tuned into it. Part of me thinks that it would be good that, people are sharing their stories. On the other hand, it can be a bit overwhelming.
So here's the thing. I think I look at it in terms that you would look at it as an economics, that first of all, I started mine like at the beginning of the pandemic, but mine is mostly focused on TBI awareness, and I do some triathlon stuff just because every person I interview, I learn something from.
Right.
And I did it, and just so happened that people like mine. And unlike triathlon content, I got a really diverse following of subscribers. I've got people who got sober, runners, swimmers, cyclists, and triathletes, other TBI caregivers and survivors. So I don't have just one kind of audience looking at my channel, and they just all gave me feedback. They're like, "Hey, we like when you do this." So, you know, it helped me get like TBI survivors and stuff. Like I coached them to do a sprint or a 5K. So that's like, once they saw that off of videos that I did with pros, they're like, this really seems interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think, and that's important, right? Is you kind of get your niche and where can you, it's all about, like, I think at the end of the day, it's about providing value to people, whatever that, I mean, whatever way that is, informational, inspirational. And it's like, there's an audience for almost every niche and every slice of life. And I think that's how you create some really compelling stuff, rather than super broad strokes of, you know, sports content. Like you build your audience out with something like what you're saying, like really specific.
Yeah. And doing this allows me to cross boundaries too, that strictly triathlon producers can't. Like Lionel can't do anything else except for triathlons. That's all people want to see him for.
Yeah, exactly.
But me, I've interviewed people like ringside fight doctors, boxers, an NFL Super Bowl quarterback, and everybody's drawn into that, you know?
Yeah, that's awesome.
It allows
it's relevant. It's, you know, personally meaningful to you, I assume too, like to explore that.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, at the very scheme of things, they either end up being related to triathlon or related to brain injuries, but they can be all different types of people.
Yeah, totally.
And I've always looked for really interesting people. Like I found the Guinness Book of World Records holder for the fastest mile with a stroller. I'm like, I want to interview you.
Yeah.
And yes, the baby has to be in it, or it doesn't.
Yeah. Nice. See, that's so interesting, and I think that keeps it. That's how you create like a sustainable sort of channel. Is like you're kind of following your interests and, you know, not feeling locked. Sometimes from what I've heard from folks, is you kind of get locked into a specific style of content, and I think in order to make it something that's sustainable and something that's fulfilling to do, it has to be that, like, interesting.
I'm just an age grouper. I'm just an age grouper. So I don't have, you know, like the Lionel thing to offer people. So that's why part of the thing is that be diversified. But in terms of economics about what happened with the YouTube, that 3-month span, it saturated the market.
Yeah.
And there were so many YouTube videos and most of them weren't very good either. Like not just ignore the fact of the quality, because they're, you know, just starting out and they don't have somebody like you to do it. Ignore the quality, but the actual substance of the content kind of sucked too.
Yeah.
And the problem that was that when you saturate a market, nobody knows what to watch, and you can't build subscribers.
Sure. Yeah. And that's kind of, I think, what has been so rewarding about the projects I've worked on, especially with Ari, who, if you haven't seen his channel, like, there's some pretty cool stuff on there. I think, aside from the fact that we're like two best friends, it's really cool that we're thinking that same thing. It's like, we don't want to create just stuff that is not interesting. We've kind of go about it in a different way. Like, how can we really create something we're proud of, a work of art almost. And for us, what that's looked like is like, I handle I have that cinematic eye and lining up interesting shots. And what I love is that then we kind of collaborate on the process. And Ari has always been a very gifted musician. And I think kind of one of the X factors is that he can look at this footage and compose original music for it. So not only do you have really high quality cinematography, you have custom orchestrated soundtracks to accompany it. And when that's all said and done, we get something that's really fun to look back on. It's like it's a high quality time capsule of that point in our lives. And I think I feel for, like, that's not going to be everybody's situation, but for me, that's kind of what's kept me in it and wanting to continue, you know, creating.
Yeah. And, you know, I assume you have this ability too, but before you shoot something, if you have an idea, you can picture it from all angles that you want to shoot it.
Yeah,
and you can, and all it is after that, it's just assembling it. It's just a really easy process. It's kind of a gift.
Yeah, it is. And it's nice to kind of have that vision. Now I've kind of, as I've kind of met more and more people in the space, like it's been intriguing that, you know, there's so many layers to this. You have the iPhone YouTuber, which, you know, no knock to that, because a lot of my friends started that way and still do it. And it's very accessible. But as I'm coming to learn, like videos can become infinitely, you know, complex as far as the planning that goes into it, the number of people behind it, like a lot of the cool, like the really impressive, more like corporate, like something you would see from a brand that they put out. There's teams of like 7 people and each person's doing something different, like the script writer, the lead principal photographer, the production assistant. Like it can get infinitely complicated. And it's just interesting because there's a lot of different ways to go about it. I think it does help to at least have a couple people, because one person can only do so much, but it's been cool to explore that.
You know, I'll tell you what, in 2009, I had a trip to New York City for work, because I was an architect before my injury. And I messaged a person on Facebook that I went to high school with, because I knew she lived in there. I'm like, hey, let's get together. She worked at a company called Moxie Productions. And though she was kind of low level at the time, one of the people at her office was, he fell into this position to where he picked the music for the soundtrack of movies and stuff. So he was always walking around listening to his iPod, all different types of music, and he would nail it every time too. I'm like, man, that's an awesome job to have.
Oh yeah. Well, listen, sound design, music choice is something that maybe you don't consciously realize as you're watching something, but it makes or breaks a piece of content. Like it, yeah. And to have good taste with that is.
Do you handle
really
that on your videos that you do for Ari and stuff?
Well, yeah, like I said, Ari kind of will watch the footage back. I'll kind of assemble it as I think makes sense. And then we'll kind of discuss what is the tone here. And like, he'll bang something out on the keyboard and be like, yeah, that's good. Let's go. Let's run with that. Or no, that's not really what we're feeling. And yeah, he can custom generate this and we can go back and edit it. I've done also projects where you go into like a royalty free music site. Like that's, you pay subscriptions for that. And that's solid. To me, it kind of lacks a certain layer of personalization, but yeah, I just think it's really special to have a collaborator that can compose something without having to pay $20,000 or whatever it would probably cost on the, you know, open market. But
yeah, you know, I enabled ads on YouTube once, and I'm like, because I'm like, oh, I'm doing good, I can do this. And then I realized, oh, I'm not getting any money from this. So I demonetized. And I just started using like actual music from like whatever I wanted to make stuff.
Oh, nice.
Well, I don't care if it's copyrighted because I'm not making any money off it. If somebody wants to sponsor me, then it really doesn't matter at all.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I didn't know. So you can put up music as long as it's demonetized. Is that they'll let you keep the video?
No, if you're monetized, you can still put it up, right? They won't take it down. But what they'll do is they'll say copyrighted on, if you go to YouTube Studio and see it, it's copyrighted. So you can't make any money off that video. So, you know, if you shoot any footage of Ari in a race and you know how Iron Man's blasting music in the background, if it catches it, it'll copyright the video.
Right. Good to know. Good to know. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that monetization question is also an interesting thing. It's we've been seesawed back and forth. Is it better to, you know, use the video as an avenue to reach new audiences and really share the piece as we created it versus like breaking it up with ad breaks? It's a question we wrestle with. Like, which is better to do? Like, of course, it's not in all, like Ari specifically, like the ad revenue does make a difference and it does help. But I think when you reach a certain point that, you know, not
people hate ads. I hate ads.
Yeah, nobody likes them.
Yeah, when I looked at my, you know, when I watched one of my videos, you know, just on regular YouTube, I'm like, God damn, you know, this is like a 12-minute video and it's spliced it like 5 times. I'm like, I don't want this anymore.
Oh, it totally breaks the flow of the video. I think if you can afford to, like, go ad free
Yeah, if I were to do it, I would get like, I don't know, say a hydration company sponsored me, right? I would pitch them at the beginning of the video, where it's not really that annoying and people could just skip past it if they wanted to.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I still said it and they still paid me even if you didn't listen.
Right. No, that's a good point. I love that's definitely what I prefer when you see videos that if they're really watching out for you, they'll put like a countdown timer of how long the ad lasts and just skip ahead.
Yeah, I hate people who double dip though, who monetize and do that. It's like
Uh,
you suck.
yeah, that's right. You
And
gotta get that bread somehow, I guess. But
and sometimes it's more you can get away with product placement, wearing a t-shirt that says whatever, all three sports on it. And then you've got that, to subliminally get to you. But
sure.
there's ways around. Like, I just don't think the monetizing on Google was worth it for me. And I know, like, I only have 4,000 subscribers, which is, for a white guy with a brain injury, that's pretty good. I'm not a celebrity. I'm not a hot chick with a rack.
Yeah.
I mean, I do good for myself. But those people, who have like 1 million subscribers and stuff, they can put in ads. They don't care whether you don't like it or not, and they just make their money off it. But for me, I'm more about maintaining my subscriber base rather than alienating them.
Of course, that makes total sense. Yeah, keep them engaged, and no need to. I feel like it is unfortunately kind of exploitative to make somebody that just wants to see what you're putting out, like make them sit through ads. But I guess it's something we're figuring out. This is really 10 years. It's really as old as this space is, like, to even be able to share videos. So I'm sure people will hopefully over time figure out a good way to do this.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
And my main message is, TBI awareness. So, I mean, I feel like, I shouldn't be pitching ads to people who are wanting to learn and how to cope with traumatic brain injuries. So,
Right. Yeah. That's fair.
So I've seen you have worked with Lionel before. What's it like working with Lionel? Because I don't know him on a personal level at all. And what you see on his YouTube videos is not really who he is per se in private.
Well, interestingly enough, that's kind of the cool thing. I feel like my concern has been in the past, like, oh, when you have a camera, like, you're kind of performing to an extent, like, because people are going to see it. And I think Lionel is one of those folks that's like nonchalant, like, everything just rolls off. So, like, whether or not a camera's on his face, like, he's pretty much the same. Like, of course, if he's asked a direct question, like, he's going to have to provide kind of a thought out answer, but he's the same person that you see on the camera as you do off, like, which is great. That's kind of been I think the message I've taken away from all the professional runners or triathletes that I've worked with is that, yes, most people just get the slice of what gets put up on the internet, but at the end of the day, pretty much 100% of the people are just the most normal people. Oftentimes they're more humble and more grounded than the average Joe on the street, even, which is refreshing, because who knows if people are completely different on and off the internet. But yeah, it's cool that I think with Lionel and Ari as well, you're just getting a true window into their life. Lionel specifically has been nothing but so generous, so humble, so kind. Just a very likable person, regardless of whether there's a camera on him. And
that's kind of why he's become a fan favorite too,
Yeah. Oh, there's no ego there. Like, he's obviously, so he's got that champion's mindset. He wants to be the best, and there's no shame in that. But I think he goes about it in a very honest, humble, honorable sort of way. And if that comes across on the videos, it's certainly true in real life too. So yeah, it's awesome. And he's done a really cool thing with Ari. Like, Ari's obviously with the excellent track runner, and probably would have been a professional track athlete had he not gotten hurt and kind of found triathlon. But yeah, Lionel is kind of making this dream possible, because he brought Ari out to Tucson and is essentially subsidizing like a full-time training camp together. And Ari brings his running skills, and because I think that's where Lionel's looking to grow. But just that's a super cool thing. And
Kind of like how boxers bring in sparrers, that kind of deal.
Yeah, a full-time training partner to just, um, help maybe get that extra 5 to 10% out of the run side for Lionel. But it's generous because Ari really doesn't have any. He's so new to the sport. He's just a kid. We're both 25, and Ari doesn't really, like you said, you didn't even know if he'd raced yet, but Lionel kind of sees that potential and is taking that chance on him. And I hope it seems to be that it's working out for both of them. But
How did he find him?
YouTube, actually, interestingly enough. Ari started filming himself. Let me think when it was. It was like January of last year. Still running with like Brooks Beasts and up in Seattle and kind of filming his bike workouts. And even then, that early on, I mean, he already probably had like 2,000 subscribers. I don't know, like hardly anybody. But that content reached Talbot Cox and Corey Belmore, who was out there. Corey Belmore is he's an excellent Canadian athlete. He's a beer mile world record holder. But he's another Canadian who was training with Lionel, helping out with the run stuff. And they all watch, they all sit around after dinner and watch stuff. And so Talbot, of course, very ingrained in the Ironman triathlon community. They all reached out to Ari and was like, hey, come through Tucson. And Ari and I were kind of roaming around the country. He was running track races and I had my camper van and we were just hanging out, road tripping around, and wasn't sure what was going to be next. And they reached out. And so last year, like February, March, we went out to Tucson and everybody got along really, really well. And then Ari joined a team in New Hampshire, moved back there to kind of have a more structured swimming development. And then I think a couple months ago, Lionel reached out and was like, hey, like if you want to come back out, I'll hire you as my full-time training partner. And it's really that's a dream opportunity. So Ari drove out and has been there ever since.
Now, I'll get you out of here on this question. Who pays you? Does the pros pay you or their sponsors pay you? How do you get who gets the money in the end?
Yeah, well, that is the $1 million question, I guess. At this point, I'm kind of getting to the point that the portfolio has come together nicely, but I actually work a full-time job. I'm a management consultant by day and do this kind of as a passion project. So the money honestly is fairly non-existent. I just got my first paid shoot. I did a short video on Drew Hunter for a running store chain, but still I would love to figure out a way to make it a full-time sort of opportunity. The nice thing is that I have the means to support myself regardless of whether the money's coming in or not, which kind of is liberating because I can go wherever I please and shoot whatever I want. And it's really, I just get excited about creating cool stuff. It's as much for me as it is for the people who see it.
And that's a good way to build a portfolio too.
Yeah. So I have a feeling that things will progress pretty nicely, hopefully going forward. But yeah, still exploring that. And Ari has, and the other folks I've worked with have offered to compensate me. And I kind of just say, if you can cover my travel expenses, that's always nice. But really, I want it to go back to them because they are building themselves as well. And I feel like down the road, we're all gonna make it together. But for now, it's just fun. It's making it. I'm genuinely getting paid in these wonderful relationships and friendships that I'm forming, wonderful travel experiences, and just kind of learning the sport. And for me, that's super fulfilling. I feel like any amount of money that I would make off of it at this stage wouldn't come close to kind of what
it's like beer money.
Yeah, exactly. But who knows? We'll see. I mean, the more if compensation somehow comes around, like that would enable me to really do it all in full time. But for now, it's just fun and hopefully creating stuff that people enjoy looking at. So,
what would you give it for a piece of advice for someone who wanted to start doing photography of sports, right? Whether it be track, triathlons, what's your advice to them?
Yeah, I would say just start. I think if you want, maybe take the leap to get the right equipment. And then just, I think the rule I've set for myself is try and do something every day, something creative, just keep that muscle working, and you don't need to lock into a niche. Like today I went and drove out to the fields and photographed some longhorn cattle, just to keep it interesting. Shoot stuff that is interesting to you, but do something every day. And then also show up, like be around. You can get some pretty awesome access just by being where the action is, and go see if there's something in your area, or maybe plan a trip that coincides with a big race or an event, and just show up. I also say today especially, everybody appreciates photography of themselves and is helping to build the brands out. And if you can build relationships with local athletes or anybody and be there to help them, because that's honestly, that's universal. There's a need for that. And if you can do good work, like people would love to give you access to what they're doing. And so yeah, there's a few things baked in there, but I'd say end of the day, don't think about it. I'd say just pick up a camera and start doing it, and the momentum will definitely build, and just have fun with it at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's much like when I interview people. I get advice from a writer at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. He's a sports writer, and he says, you don't have to worry about talking to those top tier pros. He's like, you want to go focus on those middle, bottom ones and upper comers, because they have just as good shit to say to you, but nobody's really asking them. And people love to talk about themselves, at least most people. So
right. Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. And who knows, maybe that middle of the pack athlete is going to be the next big name. So you never know.
Yeah. Hey, Johnny, man, thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Eric. This is really such a treat. And I thank you for reaching out, and looking forward to following your work and keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Enjoy your trip to Eugene, man.
Thanks. Thank you. Appreciate it.